Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a hotter sex life, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, solid friendships, a powerful legacy. Find out how good you can have it on this episode of Man Alive. Head over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, raw footage, and bonus videos you can only get there. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power that accelerates your career and solidifies your confidence with women.
Welcome to today's episode of Man Alive. I'm here today with Robert Kandell. Robert, welcome.
Howdy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, I feel excited to have you here. And, we've known each other for a long time. You've had a varied history of coaching in different domains, and probably the one that, I would say the one people might know you for most is that you co-founded One Taste in
Correct.
2004.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of us on the alternative edge, we would know of you. For those who don't know of One Taste really took on the task of bringing conscious sexuality to the mainstream market, and Robert was responsible for building the company from scratch to a high 7-figure international corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And since you've left to start your own consulting firm and help small businesses become more marketable and profitable. So much more to say. I'm going to keep going. But I just wanted to pause.
Okay.
If you had anything you want to add.
The pregnant pause. Yes, that is all true.
Good.
Yes.
So, Robert has been in my life. We've gone in and out of each other's lives in different communities and colleagues and circles. And one of the things that I've always respected about you that's felt true is your level of integrity and really genuine care that I feel you have for people.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that might also be why you are hailed as part football coach, part loving dad, part slightly crazed drill sergeant, right? But that you've actually spent the past 16 years helping people re-energize their lives and build relationships through more honest and authentic communication. And you've been lecturing and teaching, and you have a weekly podcast now called Tough Love. And yeah, you're doing it all.
Yes. Thank you. It's been an incredible life. I feel really fortunate from where I was to where I woke up to the vast experience of building One Taste and spending 10 years doing that to this current phase of my life, which is truly amazing. The last 3 years have just been inspiring, and I feel a very happy and fortunate man every single day.
Is there anything in particular in the past 3 years? I mean, I know you're in a new relationship or newish relationship.
Not so newish. We're actually engaged. We've been together for 2.5 years. She's one of those people you meet in the first week. You're like, yeah, you're my person. Aww. It was really like that. She's just the most incredible woman I've ever met in my entire life, actually. And so I'm blessed to live with her, engaged, and co-parenting her 2 kids, and just exploring life with her. She's the perfect partner for me.
Aw, well, that says a lot about you, I think. I mean, it says a lot about her, but also that you have the capacity or like the willingness to even just speak so lovingly and freely. There's something really beautiful about that.
Well, people mostly are scared to show their affection and their true self. Most people think if I show so much affection, especially men, then we're trapped or we'll owe something or making some agreement. There's this really underlying fear of revealing ourselves. But I swing for the fences. It's just like every single aspect of my life. It's like I'm either going for it full force or I'm just deciding not to go for it.
Yes.
And finding that middle ground is, just going for it. I'm just like, why play small?
And thus we dive in.
Okay.
Here we go.
Release the hounds.
I love it. Well, because you're working on a book that is called, is it The Unhidden Man?
The Unhidden Man, correct.
And so, I imagine that a lot of the way you've been living your life and the perspectives you have are what you are pulling together to actually support men to not be in that middle ground, to really go for it, to be able to reveal and feel safe to reveal.
Completely. I mean, because I was a hidden man for the first 28 years of my life. I was very normal, straight laced. I said I had a normal life, which basically means I was a good guy. I was a successful guy. I was in corporate America, 6 figures, a house in San Francisco, married, the whole corporate ladder. But my true self was buried deep, and I was a liar, and I was a withholder, and I withheld from my wife. I withheld from my family, and then
can you say even more specifically? Because it just hit me when you said I was a liar, I was a withholder. Like, what kinds of things were you withholding?
Well, my true self. I mean, I was a very successful at following the path laid out to me by my parents and society. It's like, go to school, go to grad school, get a good job, get married, produce grandchildren, retire. Not produce children, produce grandchildren. The whole path was really laid out for me, and I followed it. And at 28 years old, I was working in corporate America, Transamerica Building, 6-figure salary. But I was also overweight, unhappy, disconnected from my wife, and living a life that wasn't gratifying. And then I went to Burning Man. And everything etch-a-sketched. Everything changed.
Shake it all up and start over. Or not start over, build on it, but...
True. Yeah. Well, the story is that my wife at the time, Carol, basically said, I want to go to Burning Man. And this was 1998. So before Burning Man was so into the mainstream, it was much smaller. A mere 18,000 people instead of the 9 million people that go every year now.
Right.
But and she showed me a picture book, and I remember this picture book specifically. It was like all these people naked and mud crusted and dirty, and I was like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be with those people. Like, ew, so judgmental. And I was like, all right, I'll go. We'll spend 4 days there. And then I remember driving up, getting out of my car. It was dusk, and the winds were coming, and there was all these people drumming. And I got out of the car, and the strangest words hit me. It's like, you're home. And I was like, no. Yuppies, this is not home for yuppies. But it was like, home. And I was like, oh, okay. So I said, let's experience this. And it really was the flash of this whole new life in that one moment.
Wow. Yeah. I can remember my first moments of stepping onto the playa and the magic that ensued. And I mean, it sounds like it was a huge... I don't know, was it a 180 for you, or what was it that suddenly got let loose or unhidden, or how would you say it?
Well, I was so controlled. I was so structured. And, we built the camp, and that was fun. We were the friends. But there was one night, I think it was the third night we were there, that was the real pivotal. And this is the part where I started my path of going from hidden to unhidden. And Carol, my ex-wife, came up to me and she says, I heard this place called Delilah's, and there's orgies that happen there. Do you want to go? And, in my calm and collected, I was like, yes, like that, yes. And because I lived my entire life in fantasy around sex parties and threesomes and making out with other women and, porn-infested mind. Never. I was as straight-laced and monogamous as they came. But in my secret life, I was not. I was a man who wanted experiences, but I never had the faith I could talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
And here I was, with my beautiful wife coming up to me and saying, do you want to go to a sex party? So I was like, yes. And so all day I'm thinking about it, excited and ready for it. And then we ride our bikes there. It's like 11 o'clock at night. And I'm just imagining opening up the tent doors, and there's just Roman orgies and naked bodies everywhere. And we open up the doors, and there's 300 guys sitting around and 3 women.
Really?
Me and my wife.
Oh, that sounds disappointing.
Oh, it was disappointing to the nth degree. It was like, oh. So of course we walk in, and everyone's like looking at Carol, and I'm just like, stay with my wife. But it was a total disappointment. So after 10 minutes of hoping something would happen, we took a walk. But on that walk was the first time I was honest with anyone in my entire life about my desires around sexuality.
Yeah.
It was the first time I'd ever admitted. And I said to Carol, I don't think you're the last woman in my life I want to kiss. And she turned to me and said, I know you're not the last guy in the life I want to kiss. And I was like, really? And all of a sudden we just walked around and talked honestly. And it was an amazing, life-changing experience.
Wow. Right. I can see that, right, going from hidden to unhidden. And there's a distinction I often make with the men I work with that before you take any action, right, that having a desire is separate from taking action on it. And so, it's courageous to be willing to actually even just bring up a desire, whether or not it happens, and then everybody gets to choose what to do with it. But I think that's that first courageous moment of actually being able to say, wow, I imagine it could go this way, or I imagine I might want this. And you started talking about it.
Well, to me, the axiom is withholding is lying. We think if we withhold and we protect our partner's fragile egos, and we reveal that we hold back this part of ourselves, we're protecting them, which I think is a bunch of crap. I mean, utter crap. And I think that's the cancer of relationships, is when you withhold these parts of yourself because they're inside. Your partner can probably sense or feel something's amiss.
Yeah.
You're too chicken shit to tell the truth. And all of a sudden you have two people withholding themselves from the people they say is the most important person in their life.
Right.
So I learned, through these 18 years of practices since that experience on the playa, the benefit and the power of just speaking the truth, not vomiting the truth, not just like, bleh, to my partner.
You hold this here, take it.
Yeah. Take my charge and take my, but deliberately in safe spaces, the power of revealing that part of myself, which, frees her, to be honest. It frees the relationship, to be honest, but really it frees me to stop clenching of who I truly am out of fear of her response.
Which is huge, right? I mean, whether or not it goes well and whether or not it frees her, you're the one you have to live with every day for the rest of your life. Right. And so ideally it can, you can learn to communicate in a way and not just vomit on someone and have those conversations. But also I'm just going back to, you becoming unhidden and free.
Right. Well, in my opinion, it does free her no matter what. It might not free her in a direction she might want to go. There are things of me that she might not want to hear.
Yes.
But I would rather her know me and still choose me based on the truth rather than some facade, some social media enforced facade that we all wear to con people into liking us.
Yeah.
My belief is, okay, I'd rather be alone than put on a facade to have someone like me. And 99.999% of the people out there are wearing facades, and they're choked and they're wondered why they're unhappy, ungratified, and not having the relationships they want because it's on them. They're not telling the truth.
Right. I see so many people, men and women, both trying to figure out who someone else might want them to be, right? Like who a romantic partner would want them to be, who a boss would want them to be, or who a business partner would want them to be, and then trying to be that. And then, like you said, it's that mask and that facade. And then ultimately there's no satisfaction, happiness, joy, all of that goes away.
Yep. And people expect their partners to remain static. Tony Robbins talks about this. He says there's 7 desires, or I forget the exact thing he said, but people want security and people want excitement. They want that both.
Yeah.
And most people think their partner is going to remain the same from day 1 to day 365 to day 10 years, whatever.
Right.
But I want my partner to evolve. I want her to grow and expand. I want to be a partner to her, for her to discover different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so for me to say, you can be anything you want in this world. If down the line it doesn't work out that I want to be with you, okay, I'd much rather you be evolved than me hold you back from evolution.
Yeah.
And so from that, there's so much freedom.
Which is really generous of you, and it's moving beyond the fear of, I want this person to stay the same for me so that I don't have to face some of my own fears or,
And selfish too, generous and selfish.
Yeah.
Because I want to do the same.
Right.
And if a lot of guys will be like, I want to go out and have sex with lots of women, but my woman is, Madonna, so she can't be touched. There's a lot of double standards. I want to be free and I want her to be free. And this doesn't mean hedonism, or it actually is a deliberate process, but just the willingness, like you said, to talk about it, to be honest about it, that's where it starts.
Yes, agreed. So, okay, can we talk a little bit more about the book Unhidden Man? And I also, I feel a little curious about your experience with One Taste and how that has, I don't know where you want to go. I want to hear where you want to go, but also how it's influenced, I would say my experiences with One Taste and One Taste like organizations and things I participated in, there's a lot of unhidden, everything from our desires, our truth, our bodies, our clothing, our genitals, right? Like a lot of things become unhidden. And so I'm curious about the impact that you being part of and creating One Taste for such a long time has had on your book. And
well, to say how One Taste impacted me, there's not even words for that. I am the man I am today because of One Taste and Nicole, wow. The women, my students, my teachers, the detractors, everything. I mean, all of them really formed me to who I am today. And so I am completely 100% grateful. There were 1,000 things I would have done differently throughout my 12-year tenure, really, 2 years prep and 10 years. I mean, 1,000 things, and 1,000 things I wish I could take back, and treated people better, and I made 1,000 mistakes. And I think I did 100,000 things right. Really feel like we created something that was amazing. So when I started, I was, really out of that Burning Man experience, starting to tell the truth and starting to understand, but had no acumen, no sight of who I was. I really had a belief of who I thought I was, and I had no clue there was such a blind spot for me.
So what was your blind spot?
Well, I'll tell the story that, my classic story, which I think you could hear on my podcast with Alicia and Erwan Devan. So I was in my first class. My first class in sexuality was March 20th, 1999. I was in this room with a lot of attractive people. My first class on sex. This was, a request from my wife, and I was really curious. And so we're doing introductions, and I speak, and I'm eloquent, and I think I'm fascinating. I think when I'm done, everyone's going to clap, and everyone's going to say, "Here, come sit next to me on the couch and teach with me." And then I stopped, and then he said, "Hey, do you know your wife's crying?" And she was sitting right next to me, 18 inches away or 2 feet away. And I was so much attention on myself and so full of myself that I had no awareness that she was crying, because I was so chauvinistic and misogynistic in my words. And then Erwan did the most intense thing to me. He said, "Okay, who's next?" And let me sit in the burn of that for another hour of introductions, another 2 hours of introductions. And it was a wake-up call. I had two choices. Number one was to stand up, throw Carol over my shoulder, and go back to my man cave. Option number two, the one I picked, was, okay, there's so much more I need to learn. And so the work for me was looking at all the chauvinistic tendencies that society and my dad and the locker room had placed in me, all the misinformation, the vast misinformation about women and their desire and their sexuality and their power, who I was in the world, the purpose, everything got reflected back to me by people willing to tell me the truth. Yeah. And from that, I actually really trust that I know myself well. And so it's been this amazing journey.
Beautiful. Yeah, I appreciate your willingness. I can, again, just think back to some of my moments of people telling me the truth where it's burned or it's hurt, but I've become more humble, more available, less, whatever it is, egotistical, as a result of those moments and being willing to face those moments.
Well, this is what people do. They make each other dumb. We're in a society of angry women and dumb guys. This is what's happened in the society. This is no one's fault. No one's to blame, really. This is the way it is. And what happens is that women are angry, but they're not willing to tell truth to men.
Yeah.
Men think everything is fine and keep doing what they're doing and get dumber. And then women are more angry. And then the cycle keeps going. And so it really just takes someone to say the truth. A woman to say, "Hey, when you do this, I would prefer if you did it like this."
Right.
Guys are willing.
Feel good, or I don't like it, or
just slow fuck down. It's just like, there's so many things. And for a guy to say, hey, I'm really interested in learning to touch you or communicate to you better or know you better,
Yes.
will you be willing to tell me if I'm doing something slightly off? Would
Yeah.
you be willing to let me know? And I'll do the same for you. And then it creates a space for people to actually tell people the truth that we're not doing. So that was me when I was 28, 29 years old, entering into this world. And now feedback comes to me all the time, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful when my partner corrects me or tells me if I can do something better. It's not always easy, but I'm always grateful.
No, and it's so powerful. And, I've had many conversations because I've coached women as well over the past couple decades. And even recently had a conversation with a dear friend of mine who is a powerful, badass woman in the world. I mean, she's I don't want to give information because I haven't asked her permission, but let's just say she's, in serious badass career, worked with men her whole life, really can hold her own in the boardroom and whatever. And we were having a conversation about her not being able to say when she was in the bedroom, I don't like that, or that's not working for me, or I'm scared. And I realized, that it's similar for me. I mean, we've both done therapy and transformational work and all of this for so long. And we are, farther ahead than we were when we were younger, teenagers, et cetera. But it's still challenging for me in some moments to say, could you do that a little differently? Or, and so again, I commend you for being a man who you can take that feedback. And this is not to blame men and say it's your fault for not being able to take the feedback. But when we're all working together and on the same team, it just makes it so much easier for all of us to ask for what we want. I did another episode on asking for what you want that you can check out with Marsha Baczynski. But, it's not easy for a lot of us to ask for what we want and say when something isn't going the way we'd like it to.
Truly, truly.
Yeah.
Truly,
so,
truly.
All right. So we're on the journey of you becoming unhidden.
Okay.
And any other, I'm loving hearing your stories. Are there any other stories that stand out that helped you stop hiding, or anything you want men to know, about their own journey?
Well, there's so much. There's so much. And the first thing is that just know you're not alone. I think this is one of the hardest parts, is people think they're the only one with this affliction. Yeah. They're the only one who's lonely. They're the only one who doesn't understand women or wants something or feel frustrated. Men are not well trained in today's society to connect with a modern woman. And it's actually getting worse. We have the cell phone revolution. We have the Tinder revolution. We have the porn, revolution of entering into our psyche. And so men are really poorly trained and poorly educated to know what women want. And then what's happening is men are just like, well, why bother? And, it's not even worth it. And then they're accepting mediocrity rather than taking it on as a practice to have an ultimate relationship. There's a study I just saw in Japan, how, men under 30 are marrying at a significantly decreased rate, more than ever. And a lot of it is that men are virgins and they're just afraid of women, and they'd rather watch porn and play video games than engage with women. This is not a small sector. This is like 30%. I forget the exact statistic, but it's amazing.
Wow.
My point is that we're in our society, we're heading into more isolation.
Yes.
We're in the highest rate of people living solo. There's a book I'm reading called Going Solo that's amazing around the demographics around this. We're heading into a point where people are more and more isolated, more and more frustrated, and that's where a lot of the illness, a lot of the addiction, a lot of the depression hits.
Yep.
So if you feel like that as a man, just know you're not alone. Other men might be acting cool, calm, and collected, but most of us are fucked up just as much, if not more, than you are.
Yeah, which is actually, I love that you just said that, because that's really one of the main intentions of this podcast, right? Is for men to stop suffering alone and to actually recognize that, many men are going through something the same, if not similar, or similar, if not the same, right? and that suffering alone is one of the biggest causes of men eventually committing suicide or living, but kind of being like the living dead. And so I feel grateful for you saying that, right? That you who are listening, if you struggle with any of these things, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're weird. It doesn't mean, whatever. And you're not alone with it. It's an epidemic that's happening.
Mm-hmm. There was a Boston Globe article, 2012, 2013, that basically said that loneliness is more deadly to men in their 50s and above than bad health or smoking.
Wow.
It's like the epidemic of loneliness is really affecting. So if you feel alone, no, you're not the only person in the situation, and you can take steps for more connection.
Yeah.
And it's a practice, and it's not likely you're going to have instant gratification. And if you do the work, you can have the connections in your life that you want, because everyone else on some level is looking for it. So get off your phone, get off your social media, get out of your house, go to a meetup, go to a 12-step group, go to something social, and take those steps to have the connection in life that you actually want.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the book. Anything you want to highlight, or what are the most exciting parts about it for you?
Well, the main thing about the book is I didn't really want to write a book. I don't know if that's a common thing about authors, but I
wouldn't think so, actually. I would think that most authors actually, there's a strong desire to write a book, because it takes a lot to write a book.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I left One Taste in 2014, and I was just like, I have enough material. I have enough information to write a book. And then I was like, I don't want to be like everyone else, write another book, blah, blah, blah. And then
I'll just do a podcast.
Well, that's what happened is I started doing a podcast, which on some level is easier. You put a microphone on, you tape it, you speak for 45 minutes, and then you pop it up to the internet, and it's done. It's not like you have to write words in proper sentences. You have to make some form of sense. But so I was doing the podcast, and I just really, it went from a hobby with like 8 people listening to, last month, I think 7,500 people downloaded my podcast. So it's grown, and what the feedback I'm getting is that what you're saying impacts lives. You've impacted my life. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, my partner, Morgan, really my muse is like, you should write a book. And I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden it really just hit, and I got so inspired by it. And then I was working with a woman named Kelly Notaris of KN Literary Arts, who you might know. She's helped Nicole Dedone of One Taste. She helped Regina from Mama Gina. She's an incredible book editor and has a great team. And then from her, she was actually the one who inspired me to write a men's book, because I was writing a book around tough love and the lessons. And she actually said, you should write a book for men. And I was like, oh, because I realized the last great book for men was David Data in 1997, No More Mr. Nice Guy 2000, and there's been some
come out since then.
Nothing since then. There's a book by Dr. Robert Augusta Masters.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's a good book. It's a really good book, actually. And then, but there's not been a lot of great books for men in modern times.
Yeah.
So I feel called to it. And now I feel it's my purpose to get my thoughts and my experiences of 20 years of work, really, on some level, in a way that men can say, oh, these are some pragmatic practices I can undertake to improve my life. So the first section is how to live unhidden. The section is how to relate to a modern woman. And the third, which will probably be shorter, is how to find your purpose in the world.
Great. Well, so first is how to become unhidden. Second was how to relate to the modern woman.
Yes.
And then how to find your purpose.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So if we were going to just do, a quick piece on each of those, what would you say for the first one? How to become unhidden?
I think that's been the bulk of our conversation. It's really about telling the truth. It's about writing social media profiles that are not optimized. Yeah. It's about being truthful. It's about getting off your phone. You go to restaurants and every single person's on the phone on the bus. We go to waiting rooms, we're on the phone. I'm as just guilty as everyone else. And what happens is we're hiding. Yeah. We're hiding behind our screens. So get off behind your screens. start to look at the places that you want to hide and don't feel proud about, and start to celebrate those, and just how to, learn to speak the truth, especially the people you want to be intimate with.
Yeah, right. I'm going back to that moment where you and your ex-wife actually started just bringing it for real.
Mm-hmm.
This is what
change.
I want. Yeah. Great.
The second section is modern woman, how to relate to a
Mm-hmm.
modern woman, because I think men are poorly trained and getting dumber when it comes to relate to a woman.
Yeah.
Women are changing drastically in the last 20 years, and men are not changing as quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There's things like millennial women are at 93% of the pay gap compared to men.
Wow.
In the 1980s, it was 64%.
Wow.
So in one generation, from 64 to 93%, that's significant.
Yeah.
People are getting married later. People are having kids later.
Mm-hmm.
All the dependence women used to have on men, real or imaginary, for social and financial means, is shifting significantly.
Yeah.
Women have more freedom, not total free, but more freedom around their sexuality, around living alone. So the world has drastically changed, and men are confused at this change.
So do you have a tip if we were to bottom line it? I don't know if we could, right? But, you'll have to read the book to get the rest of it. But yeah, for what would you suggest that would be the most different way of actually relating to the modern woman?
Wow. Okay. There's so many. So I'll give two. Okay. First is you can't take shortcuts to attract a modern woman. Now, I just want to say, actually, there's a whole range of women. This is sort of right in the middle, or to, one to side. So, but just know that this saying hi on OkCupid or Tinder, hi,
does not cut it.
Does not work.
No.
Sending unsolicited genital pics, genitalia, does not work.
No.
You have to put some effort and energy into actually showing interest and paying attention to attract a modern woman, because she's just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay. Second, quick out of 1,000 is basically your women are equals.
Yes.
They are equal, powerful creatures. I don't want to get into the superior or inferior, because there's so much, we could go into around that.
Yeah.
In some ways, women are vastly superior, especially around emotional intelligence, EQ. Some ways, men do still hold the superior in terms of physical strength and linear and getting shit done. But the point is, treat a woman like she's your equal.
Yeah. And
guys are like, oh, I don't do that, but you do. And you do not because you're a bad person, because you were trained to think that women are inferior. Our society educates you that. So you have to go into your shadow, into your back programming, those small lines of code that you're not aware of, and undo those to know that women are completely equal. Once you start doing that, it actually frees you with a lot of what you should do to protect the little lady, and empowers her to be your equal. And all of a sudden, you're relating as equals. And I can tell you guys, it's so much more fun. It's so much more fun. And sex is so much more fun.
Wow. It's interesting. I'm having this experience that I'm not exactly sure how to describe. And, in a way, I think I'm on the same page as you. And I think my relationships in a lot of ways are based on equality, but I can also see the ways where even I can make myself inferior, as a woman. But I almost got dizzy as you were talking, like seeing, the shifts that actually happen for people, and in their sex life, in their intimacy, in their feeling loved and supported, in their being able to accomplish their purpose in the world, when that is the case, when there is actually a recognition of that equality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally. And women have played the inferior card for their benefit forever.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. So women, you're not innocent. Men, you're not. No one's innocent. No one's bad. This is shit that's been handed down to us. Like, I don't want to say blame or the patriarchy or feminism. Like, it's like, okay, let's get better at this. And it starts with just letting go, putting down the tools of war, and just connecting and saying, okay, how do we make this better?
Yes. Thank you. Any piece you want to give on the purpose part?
Truly. The first thing is you don't have to follow your father's path, and you don't have to reject it. There's a middle piece where you can honor your father's path and then find your own. Because I followed my father's path to a T. I was very successful and I was miserable. Then I went all the way to the other side where I basically said, screw you to my dad. Heavy, got disowned as a 30-year-old man, and then found the middle path of honoring his path, but also honoring my own path. So you don't have to follow the path, and there's ways you can break from it that doesn't have to be destructive. It can be constructive.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for gathering this, for living this, and then gathering this, information. Like you said, you didn't necessarily want to write a book, but I can feel the service in it, right? The act of really being a support for men in this way.
Yep. Yeah. For everyone.
Any last thing? Yes, for men and for women too. Yeah. What do you want to leave the men with?
Again, just you're not alone. You're doing it right, and you can do it better. We can't go from bad to better. We can just go from bad to good and good to better. So just know you're a good man with some bad information, some bad education that's not serving you, and it can get better. It did for me. I am just an example of a very numb and dumb guy who has changed his entire life in 20 years, and so grateful that I went on the path and for all the people who supported me to make me the man I am today. So I'm just really grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this with me today.
My pleasure.
All right. And where can men find you?
The best way to find me is my website, toughlove.live, TUFF love.live. It's got my archives, it's got videos, it's got some writing. It's basically my whole portfolio is up there, and information about my weekly live show, Tough Love, which is 10 a.m. PST every Thursday. Or you can listen to the recordings via my website or via iTunes. Just search Tough Love with Rob Kandel.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.